The 22nd of June, 1941, the Soviet Union. The first light of day reaches the advancing German columns as they cross the border and move toward borderlands of eastern Poland, territories seized by the Soviets in 1939. Engines remain loud, artillery fire continues in the distance, and the invasion proceeds at a high speed. Operation Barbarossa, Hitler's campaign of conquest, destruction, and mass murder in the Soviet Union, is now underway. Behind the front lines following the German army come the Nazi mobile death squads, known as the Einsatzgruppen. Their mission is the elimination of entire civilian groups. In the city of Lwów, today's Ukrainian Lviv, gunfire will soon be heard as Polish professors are taken away and murdered, and Jewish families are forced into the open and shot. One of the Nazi commanding officers responsible for these atrocities is Walter Kutschmann. Walter Kutschmann was born on the 24th of July, 1914 in the city of Dresden, then part of the German Empire. He was the son of a dentist and left secondary school before completing his final examinations. In 1928, he joined the Hitler Youth, at that time still a small and relatively new Nazi movement. Kutschmann was 18 years old when Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party came into power in January 1933. The previous year, he had enlisted in the German air units that would later form the Luftwaffe, serving there until 1936. After leaving the German Air Force in 1936, he began to study law, but he soon abandoned this path in order to join the Condor Legion. This formation supported the forces of Franco during the Spanish Civil War, a conflict that lasted from July 1936 until April 1939, and involved Franco's nationalists fighting against the Republican government. Kutschmann served in Spanish Morocco as part of one of Franco's legions. During the Spanish Civil War, he also became a secretary at the consulate of the Third Reich in the city of Cadiz. He then returned to Nazi Germany and in early March 1939 joined the state police office in the city of Leipzig. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939 when Germany invaded Poland. In February 1940, Kutschmann joined the Nazi Party, and in the same month he also became a member of the SS. 2 months later, he was promoted to the rank of SS-Untersturmführer, a rank equivalent to second lieutenant in the US Army. On the 22nd of June 1941, under the code name Operation Barbarossa, Germany invaded the Soviet Union. At the end of the same month, Kutschmann served in a special operations unit within the Einsatzgruppen under the command of SS-Brigadeführer Karl Eberhard Schöngarth, head of the security police and security service in the general government in Lwów. Soon after arriving in the city, he was placed in command of the execution platoon that carried out the murders of the Lwów professors. On the night of the 3rd of July, 1941, German cars moved through the darkened streets of Lwów. Doors were pounded upon, and frightened families were dragged from their homes. Officers, some wearing the uniforms of the Gestapo, the Nazi secret police, and others, those of the Wehrmacht, the German armed forces, entered apartments with prepared lists in hand. Professors and their families were taken away, among them Antoni Cieszyński, a modern pioneer of dentistry, Włodzimierz Stożek, a mathematician and dean of the Polytechnic, Tadeusz Ostrowski, a surgeon and medical scholar, and the writer and translator Tadeusz Boy-Zieleński, one of the leading figures of interwar Polish literature. With them went another approximately 25 people, their wives, sons, and also their servants. The arrested were brought to the Bursa Abrahamovichów, a student dormitory transformed into a temporary holding site by the Gestapo. Inside, they were beaten, interrogated, and humiliated. Witnesses later described screams that echoed through the corridors throughout the night. The next morning, trucks arrived, but before that some prisoners were taken to the courtyard of the former dormitory and shot there. Others were driven to the Vulka Hills outside the city, today part of the city of Lviv. It was early morning when the executions began, and the professors were lined up in small groups, facing open pits. They were shot, some by rifle, some by pistol. Those not immediately killed were finished off with bayonets or blows from hammers and rifle butts. Along with the 25 professors, their family members and servants were also murdered. The final two victims, Professors Henryk Korowicz and Stanisław Różewicz, were executed on the 12th of July, 1941, bringing the total number of professors killed to 27. The murders of the Lwów professors marked only the beginning of his activity in the region, and in the months that followed, Kutschmann directed and committed further killings across Eastern Galicia. During this period, he was also accused of deporting more than 2,000 Jews to concentration camps in German-occupied Poland. Witnesses later stated that in 1941, in the city of Drohobycz, Kutschmann shot a teenage Jewish housemaid named Felt after accusing her of having given him a venereal disease. In 1942, he ordered the murder of 1,500 Polish intellectuals in the Lwów region, in the towns of Brzeżany and Podhajce, in what is now part of Ukraine. Witnesses also stated that the Ukrainians forced to dig the graves for these executions were themselves killed on his orders. In 1944, Kutschmann was transferred to Paris in German-occupied France, where he briefly worked in connection with Coco Chanel, the influential French designer, during an operation known as Modellhut. This operation was devised by German intelligence and was intended to use Chanel as an intermediary with the British government. The plan centered on her personal acquaintance with Winston Churchill, and the goal was to persuade him to consider a separate peace with Germany at a time when the war was turning decisively against the Third Reich. Chanel was to carry messages on behalf of Hitler's Foreign Intelligence Service, although Modellhut ultimately failed and produced no diplomatic breakthrough. While in France at the end of 1944, Kutschmann defected and fled to the port city of Vigo in Spain, where he lived under the disguise of a Catholic monk named Pedro Ricardo Olmos. He remained there as the final months of the war unfolded, and the German collapse became inevitable. The Second World War in Europe ended on the 8th of May, 1945. In the following years, former SS officers attempted to evade prosecution, and Kutschmann relied on escape networks to protect himself. In 1947, as French authorities intensified their search for Nazi fugitives, he continued to use his monk identity and traveled by sea to Argentina, arriving there in January 1948 under the same false name. Kutschmann settled down in Buenos Aires, where he kept a low profile, working first in a hardware shop and later as a taxi driver. Eventually, he was hired by Osram, a German lighting manufacturer, where he became purchasing manager. In August 1973, Kutschmann married Geralda Baumler, an Argentine citizen of German origin who worked as both a businesswoman and a veterinarian. The couple settled down in the resort town of Miramar, in the southern region of Buenos Aires province, living quietly among neighbors who knew nothing of his past. Kutschmann's attempt to hide his past did not last. In July 1975, a Holocaust survivors group, known as the Israeli Association of Survivors of Nazi Persecution, informed the Argentinian authorities that a former SS officer was living in the country under a false name. The group supplied his alias, his address in Miramar, and the name of his employer. Later that year, the journalist Alfredo Serra of Gente magazine located him, photographed him, and publicly revealed his story. Simon Wiesenthal, the well-known Nazi hunter, arranged the documents required for extradition. After authorities confirmed that his citizenship and marriage papers were false, Interpol requested his arrest. Kutschmann escaped and disappeared again, and his Argentine citizenship was revoked shortly afterwards. A second extradition request in 1985 resulted in his arrest in the District of Florida in Greater Buenos Aires. Walter Kutschmann's health was poor, and he was kept under guard in a local hospital, where he died on the 30th of August, 1986 of a heart attack before he could be extradited to West Germany. He was 72 years old. Kutschmann was buried in a German cemetery in the town of Los Polvorines, his coffin marked with a false name, Pedro Ricardo Olmos. Until the end, he insisted that he was a Spaniard and claimed that the entire case was a misunderstanding, although he spoke Spanish poorly and with a strong German accent. At the funeral, his wife placed a wreath bearing the words "Deine Frau," meaning "your wife" in German. She cried at the graveside as friends embraced her, yet she was later reported to the authorities for animal abuse, specifically for killing homeless dogs in gas chambers. After Kutschmann's death, Simon Wiesenthal said that the Lord closed his file. Had he been extradited, Walter Kutschmann would have been the first Nazi war criminal handed over by Argentina.
Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.